Hello and welcome to another A Tippling Philosopher video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pierce. Today I'm going to talk to you just for a short time about forgiveness. And in this case, asking forgiveness from God. Hmm. Right. Crimes or harm to others can take on many different forms. But some can be particularly heinous, right? Far be it from me to constrain your imagination in detailing any such horrible harms. Instead, let's more closely consider the ramifications of causing harm to others. So you can imagine whatever harm in your mind might be a really terrible harm to, in this case, we'll talk about two other human beings. The point is slightly different if it's harm to say to the environment or to an animal or something like that. So two other sentient human beings who are, I guess, in the same kind of ballpark as yourself. Okay. What is forgiveness? Well, it's often defined as, quote, a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance toward a person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness. The problem for believers is that God is at the center of everything. Everything. So when a harm is leveled against another human, it's really leveled against God for the believer, ultimately. A sin against a human is more importantly a sin against God. And it's God from whom we supposedly want forgiveness. And this would be as according to theologians, believers, apologists. Indeed, a typical apologetics website claims, quote, to be forgiven by God means that your sins have been removed and restoration has taken place. By God's gracious gift of forgiveness through Christ, any wrong you have done is not held against you. God is eager to forgive and provides forgiveness to you through faith in Jesus Christ. It's your choice to receive it. So, rape, murder, genocide, racial abuse, whatever the harm, it is not to the victims or their families that we turn for forgiveness, but to the real victim, God. There's something thoroughly distasteful in this. The concern for what God thinks rather than the real and tangible victim seems rather unsavory. And this is made all the worse by the fact that if we believe in such a deity, we would still never know if it had actually forgiven us. Instead, we ourselves or the local priest would assure us that God had done so to assuage us of guilt and make right the horrific harm we might have done. Harm we might have done to another human. That harm, sin, crime, wrong was done to a fellow human who might still be suffering and far from being in a place to forgive us themselves. So seeking forgiveness from God then is arguably a cop out. It's arguably morally lazy because it essentially involves making stuff up. And it can also excuse habitually uncorrected behaviors. It's okay. God will forgive me. And you can see that maybe you can see that with priests who abuse children who still believe and habitually do this terrible crime. Don't seek forgiveness from the victims or from the victims' families, but continue to do that horrific crime in thinking that, hey, it's okay, God has forgiven me. And of course, they have no idea whether God's forgiven them. They're just assuming that that would happen, that that's the case. I often wonder about those priests. I mean, do they really believe in God, given that they continually commit such crimes? Most probably, although there will be instances where that isn't the case. But they probably do because forgiveness is easy when it is essentially the perpetrator deciding by proxy that God has given them forgiveness. This then excuses the harmer from ever properly facing their crimes in the form of their victim. The real victim, supposedly, the real victim is God, that abstract entity that exists in their mind. Thus, seeking God's forgiveness can act as an excuse for not having to deal with the human realities of causing pain and suffering to others. Asking forgiveness from God is a cop out. Gaining forgiveness from the victims of our harmful behavior should truly be what we as humans should aspire to, not asking and supposedly receiving, because we've assumed it, the forgiveness of some abstract entity out there. Take care. Speak to you soon.